All right, that was definitely a cool one. Not one I would have thought of before. So thank you for sharing that one with us. Does anybody want to react with that one? Like maybe the blinking versus the eye pattern movement. Like, do we see anything that those might be really what kind of conducting that might be useful for? Feel like we're a little spooked. Chloe, go ahead.
I think that that would be really useful in like a slow song if you have two like different groups of instruments. Say you have like your high woodwinds passing something off to like your low brass, just kind of being able to like cut them off, but keeping the sound moving.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. Cool. All right. So I think we only have time for about just those two right now because we do want to move on and make sure we get to really important next segment, which is our open-ended question and answer time. So this it doesn't have necessarily a topic assigned to it. The idea is for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we want to give the cohort of mentees, y'all, the opportunity to ask questions for the entire group and space. So it's not necessarily something you have to ask myself or Tanya or Michelle. We will have time specifically for you to ask Michelle questions like about her career, her life, and the topic she's about to cover here over the last hour. There's time for you to talk to Michelle specifically then, but this next time is our open question time. So I believe, Tanya, you're here, yeah?
Hi, everybody. So sorry about that. I'm here.
You're here. It's awesome. So if you have a question you just want to unmute and ask to the entire space, you can do that. You can do that with a raised hand, or just unmuting. If you have a more personal question that you might want to keep anonymous, you could send that as a private message to Tanya, and she will be able to read it out to the space. And like I said, these are great questions for everybody. It's not just something for the mentors to ask. So if you have a question that's been burning for the last week or from before we even started, now is the time to get some conversations going. What's on your mind?
Maddie has a question.
So I was wondering, I got the opportunity to conduct our school's wind ensemble, and as I've started my rehearsal process with them, I'm wondering what everyone's opinion is on wearing like earplugs, like musician earplugs during rehearsals. I want to keep my hearing for the next however many years I'm a band director, but I also don't want to put anything in between me and their sound, and I want to make sure that I'm still hearing everything. So I just wanted to know everyone's opinions on that.
Great question. What are our thoughts? Is anybody else in the room thinking about earplugs or hearing health? Corinne.
I'm someone that uses earplugs daily whenever I'm playing music or playing with a group. I have been for probably 3 years or so. I It's helped my hearing so much. I don't think I've lost any hearing in the past 3 years I've been playing with others. But I think you just kind of get used to it. I Now I barely even tell the difference between when I have them in and when I don't have them in. So yeah, I would say just don't be afraid of it, and I think you'll be fine.
It's great to hear. Other thoughts or ideas? Alexandra, is this a response to the earplug question or you got the next? Okay.
Yeah, it's about earplugs.
Yeah.
I think a big factor is what kind of music is being played. Like, let's say if you're playing in a pit for like a musical theater show and it's a very like rock pop kind of score and you have like heavy percussion and bass, and obviously you're gonna want earphones. It's gonna be a lot for your ears. But maybe if it's like a small kind of like chamber orchestra, maybe you feel okay, it's just a couple violins, viola, cellos, basses, whatever, and uh, actual upright bass, not electric bass. Just want to make that difference. So I think I would say it's okay. And if you feel any way about it, probably just speak to the ensemble and just say, hey, I'm putting these in. I don't want it to feel like I don't want you guys to feel like I'm ignoring you. I'm just doing this because hearing. And I think should be fine. I mean, we're all musicians. We all want to hear.
That's great. Any other thoughts? Okay, it looks like we had a couple responses in the chat as well. So Maddie, make sure you check those out. But it sounds like we're all pro earplugs. Personally, I've always been like, I can't wear earplugs. It's gonna make it so I can't hear the things I need to hear. But my band room has gotten really, really loud. So I'm actually starting to wear earplugs until we hopefully get the acoustics taken care of. So just, I guess, do what you got to do. Yeah. Megan, next question.
Okay. So I was wondering for anybody who's like taken conducting classes from our last meeting or just from what you and um I can't think. My brain is fried. But anything that you guys have learned, what do you see different between your conducting classes and what you learned here?
Ooh. We're only like a month in, so I don't know that we've gone that radical with the approach, or too much technique really, but it sounds like we might have some answers. Mads, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, so I've now taken like conducting lessons from 3 different people, and I like watch seminars all the time. And what I've noticed is there's kind of like a foundational, these are the things that you need to know in order to be clear, but then everyone is different in their style. So everyone has little quirks, things that they do. And when you're first taking a conducting class, you're not like there yet. My teacher told me to look at it like you're learning a new instrument. So remember where you were when you started with your primary instrument and think about where you are now and how like you're a nuanced player now and you'll become a nuanced conductor over time.
Great advice. Annie, I think you have your hand up for another question, but maybe you had an answer to this as well.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines as Mads. I'm again on my like third person who's teaching like a conducting class. I'm in my third conducting class now. And yeah, the approaches are going to be different from everybody. Um, Different emphasis too, focus on different things. So I noticed in my choral conducting class, you start with patterns on the first day. In my instrumental conducting class, we start with, the bigger picture and gestures on the first day. So again, I agree with Mads and like that it's like learning a new instrument. Everybody has their different approach and different style. Everybody prescribes to different things. And it's kind of like, and I'll say this too, don't take everything that one person says as gospel. Um, like listen to different people, because it might not work for you and it might cause you a lot of tension, a lot of pain. And so if that's the case, then, along the lines and like switch or try to find something that works for you. So yeah.
Awesome question. Any other thoughts on that one? All right, we'll keep plugging along. Annie, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so I'm decided that this month I'm gonna audition for the National ACA Conducting Masterclass. That's gonna be in Dallas, and I am really nervous. I auditioned for it last year, and I did not feel like I did a very good audition because the first time I ever done anything like that. And I wonder, does anybody have any like tips or tricks for doing an audition like this? If you need context, it's uh, you record one video, you get about 10 to 12 minutes to run and rehearse 2 different pieces. So you get like 5 minutes with each piece. I have my pieces picked out, I'm score studying them, but uh, you only get like that 10 minutes with the choir. So I was wondering if anybody has any like tips and tricks if you've done something like this before.
I think the mentors definitely, but let's see if any of our mentees have some response first. Chloe and Cassandra, I'm not sure if you're got hands up for the next questions, but if you have an answer, feel free to unmute and share.
I have I know when I do auditions, I haven't done any conducting auditions, but I've had a lot of auditions. I play the violin, so I've had a lot of orchestra auditions, and I know it helps me is doing it in front of people. Like I practice auditioning for in front of other people, like my friends or my mom or my teacher. Um, and it makes me, I mean, still get nervous, but it prepares me for what the audition is gonna feel like, and it'll show me like when I'm nervous, where the spots that I need to, like, where I mess up when I get nervous. If I keep making that mistake in front of people, then it shows me where I need to practice. So I know I understand that it's probably in a video or with a choir, but just I think just doing it in front of people helps a lot with like nerves and stuff. So
Thank you. Lucianne?
I feel like going in with a very specific structure of what you aim to achieve, your time management, if there are specific sections you want to go over, and just like knowing in your head and in yourself where you want to place emphasis, where you want it to be really good, like where you want to focus on. And then if you have a plan, then like going in and following that.
Maddie?
Something my conducting professor said to me that I think I didn't listen to as much at first as I do now is like singing through your part and not just listening to recordings of it. Sing through each line and you learn your score so much better. And then if you have that kind of solid foundation with the score, you're going to immediately feel so much more like empowered and confident in yourself because you've done the work and you put it in and now you're like ready to go.
Awesome. One thing I've noticed is a lot of times someone who might make it versus not through an audition process like that is somebody who has like a really defined sense of what they want from the music. So even if your technique isn't necessarily there, like maybe you're not showing the exact thing to get what you want, but it's evident that you're trying something, that you've studied the music enough and that you have a good idea of this particular style, the timing, phrasing, weights and all that kind of stuff, and that you're doing your best to demonstrate that versus like, well, I'm just going to conduct through that. And if my technique's really good, maybe they'll like that. If anything, I think people get excited about picking somebody with great ideas and something to work on in the technique because then they know they can really help that person and the symposium will be worthwhile. Yeah. Okay, let's do another question. Chloe.
So I recently had college auditions for our music groups, and I'm an instrumentalist, and I was the only freshman in my instrument group that had gotten a call back, and I was like really, really anxious about it. So does anybody have any like tips for overcoming that anxiety and then kind of accepting like not getting into the group that you necessarily wanted to get into?
Great question. What are our thoughts? Mackenzie, is this to answer the question? Oh, yeah, it sounds like we got to work on getting you unmuted. Mackenzie, why don't you work on that and we'll come back to you, okay? Caitlin, what's your response there?
Hi. I guess something I repeat to myself, it's actually from a jazz standard that, and I took it out of context, but there will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring. If you don't get this audition, something else beautiful will come your way. There's always doors open everywhere.
What a lovely thought. Thank you for sharing that. Megan.
I personally just, I don't know if this doesn't work for everybody, but I kind of just pretended I wasn't nervous during my audition because I recently had it. And it actually really helped. I kind of went in there like I knew what I was doing, or I that's what I told myself. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm confident in my piece. I made small talk with the professors. Like it's kind of tricking your brain into thinking that you're not nervous, which I think there's like science behind that. But it really helped me because I have horrific audition anxiety. So that's like the first time I've not only like felt really good about an audition, but also was not a wreck before and after, which really helped.
Great to hear. Annie.
Yeah, I also get really bad audition anxiety and like nerves. Um and it was especially affected me like my freshman year of college, I'd say. So something, this is gonna sound really bad and really weird, but I go in the mindset with I don't care. Um in the sense of like I want to do my best. I'm going to do the best that I can possibly do, but I need to try to detach the outcome from that, if that makes sense. And I've had this with choir auditions the last couple years of, they are going to place me where I need to be placed. Um, and trying not to attach your value and your worth to where you are placed.
That's really great advice to remember. Mackenzie, it looks like you fixed your muting problem.
I did it. Um, I also like I'm in the same boat. I just made an ensemble and I'm one of two first years who made that ensemble. And so like what helped me and like helps me currently in rehearsal because I feel really nervous in rehearsal about playing, is that I feel like I know my pieces really well. And so knowing that I'm like confident in what I know is I think helpful to just kind of push out what's like holding you back and like knowing that you're musical and you've got like what you're prepared and knowing that you're really well prepared, I think also is good to like relax some of the anxiety knowing that you're prepared.
Fantastic advice. Addie, is this another response to that? Okay, great. We'll take you as our last one for the second segment.
I also struggle with the like yeah, outcome of like auditioning if I don't do well and like how to deal with like failure. But something I like to do is when I'm practicing for an audition, I tell myself like this is gonna be a first chair audition, like this is gonna rank #1, this will be the best audition, like I'm getting first chair. And then like the second I'm done auditioning, I walk out and I say I got last chair. And I tell myself like that was horrible, which is maybe bad, like maybe I'm like gaslighting myself a little bit, but I think it helps me because then I'm like, no, that was horrible. And then even if I get like second to last chair, I'm like pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Oh, as long as that doesn't damage your psyche, I think that's a nice way to trick yourself into being pleasantly surprised with any good news. Exactly. Awesome.
I-
Okay. Oh
Can
yeah,
I
go ahead,
add
Michelle.
one thing, one
Yeah.
idea, and this super applies to conducting, but I think it applies to everyone. I was a piano major in undergrad, and I had crazy performance anxiety, and sometimes that carried over when I started conducting. And step one, being a little nervous or having some anxiety, means you care. If you're asleep at the wheel, the music wouldn't be good either. So, like, the adrenaline does that. Don't feel bad about it. Step one, need to care to do what we do. And step two, I try to think about the fact that playing in an ensemble, leading an ensemble, it requires teamwork and it requires us trusting each other. And so I think the whole fake it till you make it thing comes to mind here because sometimes I might doubt myself a little bit, but actually it's my job as the conductor to support everyone and inspire confidence. And they're not going to be as confident and play as well if I like let my nerves make me hunch and withdraw. So even if I'm feeling a little nervous, I go out there, I stand straight, I do a breathing exercise, and I try to project confidence, not in a fake way, but in a genuine way, because that's part of the job. And it's not fake to do that, right? So I try to focus on other people and not myself and working together.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle. And what a great segue into the next segment, which is you. You are our guest lecturer, our guest mentor today. So Michelle, you get to take away basically the next 50 minutes with a 10-minute break included in there. You're going to share maybe just a little more introduction about yourself and then launch us into our focus today, which is on conducting pathways to the podium. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome Michelle Refrano.
So nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be united with my friends Tanya and Caitlin. So a little about me. I am primarily a freelance opera and orchestra conductor. I actually work primarily in opera fields. And so I travel and conduct operas or assistant conduct with different companies in the US, sometimes abroad. And I also am the founder and music and artistic director of an orchestral ensemble in New York City called Protestra. And we hold concerts several times a year themed around issues of social justice. And we use the concerts to fundraise for different charities related to those issues. So it could be an ongoing issue in society or responding to current events. So that's pretty much what I do. I created a presentation that I'll actually, I'm going to screen share to go through it, but I will also send you all the link for viewing because it's lots of detail written out, not so heavy on the graphic design and heavy on the brain dumping all the information I can think of that might be helpful to you. But we're going to try to go through the overarching ideas here and then, let's discuss some of our own ideas at the end of just brainstorming what our own paths could be. So let's see. I have to screen share step 1, right? Okay, how do I do this? Share. I haven't done a Zoom screen share in a minute. Okay, can you guys see my desktop? Great. Okay, let me wait. Presenter view. Okay, can you guys see this? And is anything blocking it, or like you can see the screen? Nodding to screen. Yeah. Is it good? Okay, great. Tell me if something's like blocking it. Okay, great. Pathways to the podium. And again, these are things that I know from my experience or things I know from friends' experience.
Hey,
But
Michelle, real quick, I think
Michelle, yeah.
your
sorry.
The presentation box is, we can see it.
that's what I was asking. If something was
Yeah.
blocking it. I didn't know if it was just visible to me. How do I get rid of it?
I don't
It's
know.
timing me. How do I do this?
Can you just get rid of it? Just cancel it out. There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
genius. Great.
Okay.
Good. Let me know if something else is you can't see. Great. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, how do I like do the, hold on. Guys, it's not, okay, great. There. Is that good? It's just my screen.
It's great. It's perfect.
Anyway, figured that out. Good. Pathways to the podium. Welcome. So, step 1, I've listed some types of conducting specializations, and I know we have a variety of people here at different points in their career. Some of us are just getting interested in conducting. Some of us already kind of know what we want to be doing, definitely want to be conductors. So this is just an overview. And again, I'm sure there are way more types of careers than listed here. But the general ones we'll hit are orchestra, opera, choir, band, wind ensemble, music theater, music director. Now, some of the professional settings, you can conduct community ensembles, you can be a church music director, you can work in education at any level. You can pursue work, audition for professional ensembles, and then of course, some ensembles will hire a regular music director or assistant conductor, which is a regular position. And a lot of conductors are freelance, where they're with a different ensemble or a different opera company as a guest conductor, like every week, every month, every couple years. So let's see. Oh my gosh, sorry. This shouldn't be as technologically challenging for me as it is. Okay, here we go. So a big thing we'll talk about today, it's not just pathways in terms of step 1, do this, step 2, do that. At the end of the day, the most important things for being a conductor are just developing the skill set to do the job. And so anything that gives you experience will also help put you on a path towards the career that you want. So there are different musical skills that I'm sure you all already are pursuing in high school and in college, as you can see here. And then, of course, the interpersonal skills required. Rehearsal technique, collaborating with others, entrepreneurial skills, being brave and putting yourself out there, being creative to create your own projects and to envision the career that you want. And again, you can't you can't actually learn to do anything without experience. And so many of us play instruments and you take it to the practice room and you practice it for many hours, but you can't take your orchestra to the practice room and practice your orchestra. So just anything you do that can gain experience will help you on your way. Let's see. Okay. Now, no two paths are the same. When I was a young conductor, I would ask like conducting professors for advice, or conductors I assisted. I would say, what did you do? Should I do that? And they always told me no two paths are the same. And it's so, so true. So as we go through this presentation, I will just give you tons of ideas of possible things that might work for you. I would love for you all to take note, and you can review something in the slides. I sent you the link of things you are already doing. You're already in this meeting, for example, to learn more about conducting. Things you're already doing that could set you on the path to being a conductor. Things you could do now or tomorrow or next week to continue on this path. And then big dreams for the future, what you might want to pursue down the road. We're not signing anything, you don't have to make a commitment, but dream big. Just, what are some ideas that inspire you? So take some notes and we'll discuss it all at the end. Okay, so some of us are in high school. Those who are beyond high school, still pay attention to these because honestly, you'll see so much overlap with conductors of all levels. In your school, some ideas to get experience are just joining school ensembles. This applies to all ages, but you learn best how to work with people, how to play in an ensemble, the repertoire ensembles play by just being in it, playing your instrument in it, observing your teachers, writing things in your music. Of maybe they give a description of the music that inspires you. Put that in your toolbox that you could use in rehearsal one day. Of course, taking classes if you can, music theory classes. Always, I'm going to be a broken record about saying create your own projects, organize your own projects, and make your own opportunities because the world is your oyster when it comes to that. Of course, if your school has musicals, play in the school musical. Lots of ideas outside of school while you're in high school and just starting to think about conducting. Of course, music lessons. Sometimes some conservatories, if you live in a city with a conservatory, they may offer pre-college classes. You could look into that. As I go through some examples today, if you're like, what festivals could I apply to? What conservatories offer pre-college? Like perhaps ask those questions at the end or email me or any of the mentors for specific ideas. But so you can get a head start on music education that way. Any ensemble you can play in, if you start a chamber music group, if you start a band, you're learning to rehearse, you're learning to play with other people. Of course, regional youth orchestra, sometimes they have conducting classes. Churches join church choir, and a lot of times you could get involved even in starting to lead when you're in high school. So next up, college. For those for whom college is the next step, let's discuss some options. So I'm talking from the perspective of the United States. Other systems in different countries might work differently. But the several options you have to pursue conducting are, you can apply to a conservatory or a big university like a state school with its own music school within that. And there aren't conducting degrees really offered for undergraduates in the United States. So most people pursue an instrument or voice performance for their undergraduate degree and, start to get skills while you're in school, later apply to a conducting degree for a master's. You can also pursue a music education degree. And if your primary goal is to conduct in an educational setting, in the US, if you do want to teach in school, you do need a teaching certificate. And this, of course, will automatically give you conducting experience, usually, while you student teach, right? Then some conductors, I have many friends who didn't go to a conservatory for undergraduate. They went to a liberal arts school. They got a general music degree. They didn't specialize in performance for a certain instrument, but they still got opportunities to conduct with local ensembles. They got projects together with their friends, put together a recital. And they also took a lot of classes or maybe double majored in something that might support their conducting, like learning another language. So how to choose what type of school. And again, this will apply for grad school as well. Of course, start to think about your goals, and you're not going to know when you're 16 or 18 or 20 or, necessarily even 40, like you could change what you want to do in the future at any time, but start with a goal and work towards that until you decide to pivot. So look into schools that the alumni, if you can find this, the professors are doing what you want to be doing. The alumni are doing what you want to be doing. And think about, like, say, okay, I want to be an opera conductor. If I apply to this conservatory, will I be able to play in the opera? Will I be able to, is there a professor that is conducting opera that I could maybe take lessons from? Some conductors conduct a lot of opera, others don't, right? So look into these types of things. If I recommend this for undergrad and grad school, but your private teacher for your instrument and your private teacher for conducting, how well you work with that teacher is so, so, so important for your personalities to mesh and also just for their teaching style to come across to you. So I really recommend, sitting in on a class, doing your research on the teachers, and even taking a trial lesson if you can. So let's see. Next up, during undergraduate degree. How can you get experience if your degree is in an instrument, but you want to start learning how to conduct? A lot of times degrees will require you to take an intro to conducting course. When I got to my undergraduate degree, I knew I was interested in conducting, so I just asked to take it sooner, and I took it at the beginning of my second year. So that kind of started me off on learning some of the skills earlier. You can also pursue an independent study, take conducting lessons. I also did that when I was an undergrad in piano. Highly recommend while you're in school taking advantage of the fact that all of your music friends can play for you and will likely be fine with you paying them in pizza. And so get stuff together with your friends, get a recital together, say, hey, I want to stick wave through Beethoven's First Symphony. Do you want to come over to my living room? We're going to order some pizza and we're going to read through some Beethoven, bring your music stand until like the neighbors yell at us for playing Beethoven at 10 p.m. Highly recommend. That's what I did, and it's a lot of fun. So take advantage of all of your colleagues and friends. Also, at any stage, there are from high school through college through, professional level, music directing at churches and musical theater is a great way to get rehearsal experience. Let's see. Extra ideas to gain experience, and these apply to any degree. Once again, being part of school ensembles in any way you can. Take additional courses if you can while you're in school. So for example, language courses, German, French, and Italian are used by most classical musicians. There are people who do opera who specialize in Russian, for example, maybe who have a head start on like your family, your grandparents are from Russia, and like I could want to do opera and I could specialize in Russian. Take that. That'll set you apart and that'll be super interesting. One thing that I did when I was in grad school for orchestral conducting is I'm a pianist, so I knew I wanted to do opera. So I took extra collaborative piano courses that were offered by the opera department to collaborative pianists just to start learning some opera repertoire. I didn't have to take it. I had a huge workload and went kind of crazy, but I learned so much that I still use all the time, and it wasn't required of my degree. So really seek out the information you want to learn. Let's see, what else can you do? Yeah, if you're a pianist, you can gain a lot of experience accompanying lessons, accompanying juries. For anyone, if you want to learn more about an instrument that you know nothing about, exchange lessons with a friend while you're in school. If you're a string player, you need to learn more about wind instruments, vice versa. Just, then you don't have to pay for lessons and you can spend more time hanging out with your friend. Always look for opportunities to observe rehearsals. Highly recommend that, whether it's at your school. Sometimes schools bring in good guest conductors. You might not be part of a certain orchestra or a certain concert cycle, and there's an amazing conductor coming in. So see if you can find time in your schedule, ask to sit in on their rehearsal, bring your score, take notes. It's a good chance to learn repertoire and a good chance to observe rehearsal technique that does or doesn't work. Also, if you're at school in most cities will have anything from a regional to a big professional orchestra, and often there are ways to work your way into sitting in on those rehearsals as well. So you can learn a lot from those. Also, I got good advice from a professor. I did an independent study to take a semester of score reading lessons with one of the theory teachers when I was an undergrad. He gave me some great advice that was like, to be a well-rounded musician, just try to make any opportunity you can, try to learn something about music. So if you need to make some extra money for school, of course, do what you have to do. Get a job at a coffee shop, like no problem. But if you can make it a music gig, no matter how big or small, you'll always learn something. So, like teaching lessons, playing for ballet classes, anything music related. Like you'll learn how to manage your time, you'll learn how to explain things. It all feeds into the type of musician and the type of leader that you are, the type of collaborator. So just any and every opportunity, take it as an opportunity to learn. Okay, for pursuing a graduate degree in universities. So again, in the US, master's degree is often the first degree that is offered in conducting. And you can have different specializations in this. So I would research conservatories that offer specifically what you're interested in, whether it's symphonic wind conducting, choral conducting, orchestral conducting. Most schools don't specifically offer opera conducting, if that interests you, but there are some schools that the students are more involved or less involved with the opera department. So that is something to do your research and be aware of. Additional degrees you could pursue eventually are an artist diploma or a performance diploma, which would usually come after a master's degree, and that's very focused just on performance, on study. It's a great chance to get extra experience just working with your teacher, focusing on the music. You could pursue a doctoral degree. Now, many universities, if you want to teach at a university, many of those require that you have a doctoral degree to become a professor there. And so that will, of course, be academic classes plus performance, but it will also require research. You'll have to write a dissertation. It's a big research paper, often give a lecture recital or some kind of performance relating to it. And so it's definitely research and more schoolwork focused. And that is, I mean, if you can pick any subject that interests you, and then also if you want to pursue a university degree, that's the way to go. So let's see, things to look for when deciding your graduate program. A big one, if you are sure you want to pursue a degree in conducting, is podium time. I cannot stress enough. Some schools offer a lab orchestra for their student conductors. And so these are students, like a full orchestra of students that are hired usually to play for the student conductors while you have a class like in front of them. Your conducting professor says, conduct this movement of a symphony, and then you start, and then they stop you and give you all the feedback and everything. And so some schools have a lab orchestra, some have just a pianist, some have both. So the thing about conducting an orchestra is you only learn how to conduct an orchestra by conducting an orchestra. Like I said before, you can't take your band or your orchestra to your practice room. And so the more minutes you get doing the thing in front of people, just the better you'll get faster. It's just science. So another thing to look for is some schools give opportunities for grad students to actually lead ensembles, like lead the non-major orchestra or the undergraduate orchestra, and then you would get rehearsal experience too. So that's helpful. Look at the recital requirements. Also look if your school has assistant conducting opportunities to assist if there are, your conducting professor leading the orchestra, or sometimes there are good guest conductors that come in. It'd be great to be their assistant and learn from them. Sometimes some conservatories have a connection with a local professional symphony. So do your research here on, let's see, sorry. Oh gosh, no, go back. Oh God. Okay, here we go. Also back to do your research on who the conducting teacher is. I recommend, I thought I put it here. Maybe I have it on the next slide. In terms of finding a conducting teacher, you can try to, don't just look at, I wouldn't just look at the school itself, but also who you'll be studying with. And if you like their technique, like if you respect their rehearsal style and them as a musician, if you like their teaching style. There are some conductors that I auditioned for their graduate program and I didn't get in, and honestly, I'm so glad because they were so mean. Like, I don't do well with a mean teacher. Some people are like, yeah, kick my butt, I'll work really hard. Like, fine, you go to the school with a mean teacher. I don't do that. So I'm glad none of that worked out. Everything happens for a reason type of thing. But seriously, like, sit in on some classes and see if you like their style. Also, let's see. I have another one here. Oh, more to learn about graduate programs. I would reach out if you can to alumni of a program. See if someone can connect you to someone who studied there. Ask them what it was like, how the teacher was, what experience they got. Do they feel qualified to take the next steps by the time they left? Also, a lot of conducting teachers, offer master classes or workshops, sometimes during school breaks or sometimes in the summer. A lot of these you'll have to pay for. It might be like a week or 2 weeks, and you'll travel to the city, conduct a chamber ensemble or an orchestra, and they'll give you feedback, masterclass style. Sometimes that can be a good way to get to know professors, and also for them to get to know you. So if you come in and audition for their school a few years later, they might remember you and be like, wow, this person improved so much. So where I went to grad school, I actually went because I did workshops with the teachers and I really loved studying with them. So let's see. Okay. Continued learning. The amazing thing about pursuing this path, and I really believe this, is that we never stop learning. It is a lifelong pursuit, and the amount we could learn is endless, and that's really exciting. So after school, continuing to do things that teach you, help you learn skills, but also help you put yourself out there professionally and meet new people are all of these things. You can apply to master classes, be given advice by a master teacher. Some of them have age limits, many of them don't have age limits. You can apply similarly, you can apply to workshops. You can, of course, continue private lessons. At this point, I haven't had a private lesson with a conducting teacher in a while in terms of waving a stick. But I have all the time, actually. When I'm doing a piece for the first time, I will call one of my mentors who's maybe conducted an opera a bunch of times and be like, hey, do you have a couple hours I could talk through this score with you? You've conducted La Boheme a bunch of times, and it's my first time doing it. What are some of the things to watch out for? And usually teachers will be happy to keep in touch and share this stuff with you, You can apply for competitions. I would be wary for any of these things that you have to pay for, whether it's master classes or competitions. Like, do your research on what the opportunities could lead to make sure you're getting your money's worth here, is all I'll say. Also, my smart bulb just automatically turned out and I don't know how to turn it back on. So sorry, it just got darker. Continue to observe rehearsals, see if you can go to the local professional orchestra, sit in on rehearsals. Apply for assistant conductor positions and fellowships or summer festivals. I'll talk more about that. Also, once again, as always, you can create your own opportunities in your community with your colleagues. Let's see.
Michelle,
Okay.
check in on time. It is
Checking on time. Great. You know what?
We'll want to
Why
do it
don't
at some point.
let's do a break now, and then we'll come back and do this second portion of presentation and discussion.
Awesome. All right. Let's maybe unshare real quick just so everybody
Oh
can
yeah.
see each other. So it is 8:55 p.m. Eastern time. I'm doing my own math from California. So please be back at 5 after the hour. You get 10 minutes right now to stretch your legs, use the restroom, grab a drink. If you want to stick around and unmute yourself and chat with everybody else who's here, feel free to do so. I gotta go use the restroom. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. See everybody back at 5 after the hour.
I'm gonna figure out my light. Okay. Oh God. Great. Ooh. Why I take so many different gigs. I'm checking out the chat now. Yes. Love. Is Tanya here? No. Caitlin stepped away.
Michelle, would I be able to ask you a question?
Sure.
So I have like the big school gala thing tomorrow, and I'm conducting a piece. And I'm struggling quite a lot with the time changes because there's about 3 or 4 time tempo changes where but they're really subtle. So it's like 86 to 104, and then it goes down to 96. What are the best ways to approach that? Because I try and sing it in my head, but then I'm concentrating on so many things that it's really hard to actually get those time changes really accurate.
Sure.
Do you have any suggestions for that?
So in terms of aiming for a specific metronome marking, I mean, no one's a robot, so we try our best, right? Something that helps me, other than, practicing with a metronome for a year and knowing it cold. I mean, often we don't have that luxury. Actually, we never have that luxury. I actually, because there are tempo changes all over the place in opera. That's all it is. That's all the conductor is there for, frankly. It's not all, but I have greatest hit tunes in my head that I know are like a certain metronome marking. So at least in my practice, right? Hopefully in a performance, I'm not like thinking ahead about some pop song I know, but in my practice, I will try to like, I don't know, to at least know that I landed correctly if I'm like in that realm. So you can literally Google online like metronome, like what songs are metronome marking BPM quarter equals 76. You will literally find everything. I can tell you the Beatles' Hey Jude is quarter equals 76. Like I literally have a list in my head of songs I know like from childhood that are pop songs that like, so anyway, that can inspire some confidence in rehearsal. For me, like when I'm learning something, I use that all the time. Because sometimes you're tired and your perception of tempo is like, you know, that happens to all of us sometimes. In terms of tempo transitions, I call moments like this trouble spots. And trouble spots where basically where things can go wrong is like a fermata and a tempo change. Like those are the spots that everyone, like it's not just in four, or of course like an accelerando. These are the spots where people need you. And so like these are the circled spots where until the day of a performance, I will flag those pages and I will just open to each page, and like you don't have time to review a whole opera every single day. That's hours. But I do have time to go through 17 pages of a score and real quick in my mind be like, okay, I'm going to stop on the last beat and then I'm going to do a pickup in the next tempo. And I like make a plan for myself. Some tempo relationships, I also, for me too, I'm like a big scribbler in my scores. So I draw like, everyone has different things. I draw little diagrams for myself to remind myself like what I want to do, just so I like consistently internalize the same thing. Like I internalize my own plan. So, for example, sometimes a tempo change, I'll kind of stop on maybe the last beat of the bar, and then I'll do an upbeat in the new tempo, for example, like cheat that a little bit. Other times I'll do an accelerando, a poco accelerando into the next bar if it's like really close. Sometimes if you have to do subito a tempo, new tempo on the downbeat, then you have to like within the pulse of the first beat, make it a different tempo. So if you're going ya da 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 da, it's the getting from 1 to 2 that has to be spot on. And so that's just a thing for you to repeat for yourself in practice and sing it out loud. So those are some, or backtracking to the other strategy is where you can kind of stop on beat 4 and then have the new tempo change. Da 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 da, bum bum bum. So it's like it's not a official fermata, but it's like a little don't go on in the new tempo. Do you know what I mean? Like a poco stop. And then so it just depends on your piece, but I try to make a decision and then stick with that for consistency of myself, but also so people know what to expect. And then people aren't like, what's the conductor doing? It's different every time. Because we've all been in that ensemble where the conductor did that and it can throw people for a loop. So I don't know if that helps. That was a lot, but those are my strategies. Good luck. Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback off of that and ask another? This is a very general question. But I'm currently a sophomore in a performance undergraduate degree.
Cool.
And I haven't even like considered conducting as a career that I might take because I've just been so focused on performance. And I just wanted to ask if you have like any advice or like anecdotes about like, because I love performing and I also love conducting and teaching.
Sorry, so what like personal anecdotes about like pursuing conducting
Like-
versus individual performance, or?
I don't know. People like, is there a way to do both, or is there like?
Well, if you're a singer, Barbara Hannigan, I mean, you know Barbara for those who don't know Barbara Hannigan, she's definitely one of a kind. But I think I do know people who do both. I do think there's only so much time in a day, so perhaps like, you know, you're going 1 week to singing, 1 week to conducting, maybe a little hard to swing professionally and network wise and also just brain wise, right? But I also know people who like go through different phases of their career where they perform for a while with the idea they might be interested in conducting someday and really learn the repertoire that way and learn how to be an opera singer or a violinist in an orchestra. And then there comes a point where they're like, you know, I think I could be leading this better than the person up there, or I want my interpretation to be the one that's known, or I want to try something different. And so then they pursue conducting, and there's not a time limit on that, you know? So, I think it's interesting, and I do know several people that, you know, through college and into grad school continue to pursue both. I actually do have a friend who she just finished her master's degree in conducting, did voice for undergraduate, and she's pursuing professionally, primarily conducting, but she also takes a lot of gigs as a singer and sometimes will perform with like smaller opera companies when she has a break, like a smaller role. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, it's only you can know what your priorities are right now and what you have the bandwidth for. But I wouldn't say black or white, have to make a decision like right now, if that makes sense. I don't know if that helps.
I think
That
sometimes
did help.
just to add on to that, I think sometimes it's also about like I really believe that luck is like preparation meeting opportunity,
Yeah.
you know? So sometimes like you just have to kind of like have your hand in multiple places and be ready for when the time comes. Sometimes, especially in conducting, it's being at the right place at the right time sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so because of that, like you kind of, if you have any inkling, why not leave that door open by being prepared and studying? You never know. And I think like, you know, in my case, like I'm an educator who happens to conduct. That's what I say to people. But really a large part of it is also that like, you know, it's I have to work on all the crafts, and like Michelle says, it's hard to kind of you feel a little bit spread thin on some time. But I think she's right, is that you have to figure out what your priorities are. And as time goes on, your experience will validate and solidify what you want to do.
Totally. That's a really good point, Tanya. To Tanya's point as well, in terms of always pursuing, you know, knowledge or opportunities. For example, so Julia asked this question. Everyone, we'll get back to the discussion in a second for those who are coming back. But Julia asked the question, like, I like performing, but also conducting and haven't kind of decided either way. Can you pursue both? And while you're, for example, in a voice degree, I'm a guest conductor a lot of times at conservatories for an opera. And a lot of times I don't have an assistant conductor there. Like either the school doesn't have conducting students or they're not assigned to the opera. There have been a couple times where singers who are an undergraduate say, hey, I'm in the chorus, so I'm not in a lot of scenes, and I'm interested in conducting. Can I like sit behind you in rehearsal and like observe, or can I come to orchestra rehearsals like when I'm not called? And I'm like, great, you behind me, take notes now. Like that's actually amazing and so helpful. And I'm always so happy when people come up and like just ask me to like sit in on rehearsal or like offer to take notes for me. I'm like, you're hired on the spot. So don't be afraid to like, you know, do things like that, even just to like gain more insight into the process. You know what I mean? It can't hurt. You'll always learn more. So
Thanks for that insight. We have just hit 5 after, so let's continue. We've got just 25 minutes left with each other, and we want to make sure those last 10 minutes are saved for like open questions for Michelle, since Michelle, this is your one
this
time.
was a note to me to like not talk so much. Wait, oh my God, where'd my presentation go? Disaster. This is a disaster. Where did it literally go? Does anyone, what? Sorry.
Do you have
Hold on.
extra, maybe like,
Where did my link go? I'm so sorry. Did I close it? I'm going crazy. Hold
Do you
on.
need the link? Do you need the link again, Michelle? Okay, you got
I
it.
have to screen share. Yes.
well, as you're learning, we conductors wear so many hats that oftentimes we're very scattered. I'm very scattered today too. I'm having
Truly,
a scattered day.
truly. I like can conduct a whole opera, but I can't find my way to rehearsal. Like the struggle. Listen, we all have our strengths.
Mood. All right, go ahead.
Presenter view. Is this actually presenter view? I feel like it's like,
yes.
Ah, hold on. Is it like actually?
We can see everything, but it's like full screened in your browser. There you go. That's full.
Great. We did it, Joe. Okay, hold on. Where are we? Okay. Professional work. We got to this. Yes. Okay. So after school, university, let's review the different kind of pathways. You saw the slide earlier, the different types of conductors. I'm gonna real quick, so we have time for discussion, kind of blaze through some pathways, and then you have this for reference if I don't actually talk about everything. Orchestra conductor, and a lot of these things apply to everything. It's like kind of all the same, but the fields are different. You can apply for assistant conductor positions. You can apply for conducting fellowships. I listed some very well-known ones, and I'm thinking after some questions, perhaps making a resource document of like maybe some workshops and like fellowships that are a good idea. Caitlin put one in the chat. Maybe we'll try to send that out after. You honestly, everything is just working your way up experience-wise and professionally. So it's like apply for assistant conductor of the smaller orchestra, and then assistant conductor with bigger orchestras. And then when you get more of that experience, maybe conducting enough family concerts, well, now you have podium time experience. Apply to be for a music director position with a community orchestra. Work your way up that way. You can also apply to youth orchestra jobs. Again, you can look for freelance opportunities. Back to creating your own ensembles and projects always. And of course, there are university positions to apply to. Opera conductor. Similar thing here. I would say, so one thing opera has is young artist programs. And so that's kind of like a year-long or summer festival-long fellowship. Many of them have ones for rehearsal pianists. Some of those offer assistant conductor opportunities to the rehearsal pianists. A few of them have ones just for conductors. So you can do some research there. You can reach out to me personally if that interests you. More opera conducting careers in the US are freelance than I would say orchestral conducting careers are. So just know that. Chorus master positions are a great way to learn the repertoire. That's an additional thing. You'll rehearse the opera chorus before they get to be on stage and with the main conductor. Again, university opera departments sometimes have a music director, or they'll hire guest conductors, which I have a lot of fun doing when I get those gigs. So, wind ensemble band. Same thing of applying for master classes, workshops. You can get yourself out there. Wind ensemble, correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, a lot of it is somewhat focused around education usually. So
yeah, that or military. Or you
okay,
kind of
I put that at the end. I can't tell you about it, but that is also. So education, choosing which path of education will inform if you get an education degree and or a doctorate, right? Some people teach, I know a lot of people, orchestra, band, who get an education degree, teach in high school for a while, and eventually go back for a doctorate degree and then teach at a university. So, you know, you can do what's right for you, for you next. There are also community bands and wind ensembles that maybe you could get a conducting opportunity with, or assistant conductor. There are youth ensembles as well. Choral conductor, similar thing here, but choral people have a lot of church music job opportunities. That's a big way to get choral conductor experience. Again, anything from community to professional level apply to be assistant conductor, working on up to guest conductor or music director. In terms of professional choruses, some other fun ideas there are professional chorus music directors that they rehearse them for the local symphony. So like Beethoven 9 needs a chorus. The music director of the local professional chorus will be the one who rehearses that. And then same for opera choruses, right? Of course, university positions as well. Musical theater. So community theater productions, high school productions, those for anyone who wants to be any kind of conductor, those are great gigs just to pursue anyway. It kind of requires all of the skill set. Often a lot of people, from what I understand, I am not necessarily entrenched in Broadway musical theater world, though I do love it. A lot of people sub in pits or play an instrument in pits or play keyboard, and then they know someone who needs an assistant music director to also lead from the keyboard. And then people will be like, wow, that person's really good. They conducted a few performances, and someone will send a gig your way to be the music director. So connecting with people that way, and being a really flexible musician is important, and making those connections. Also, if you pursue musical theater, there are touring opportunities. It's not just like fixed in a theater. A lot of musical theater artists, from singers to musicians to music directors, will go on tour, and that's like a cool gig. Let's see. Next, wait, go. Okay, different specializations. 3 things to think about are, there are genuinely, at least in the US, different professional networks for different genres, specializations of conductor, if you will. So, for example, I know a lot of people in opera world, and I continue to get hired for things based on either people who've seen my work, but it's not necessarily as much overlap with like symphonic or musical theater world for me. It's also the same for, you know, if you wanted to conduct film scores specifically, move to Los Angeles. It's a completely different network of people who are going to be hiring conductors to conduct recordings in a studio for a film than it's the people hiring assistant conductors for like the Lyric Opera of Chicago or for like any Philharmonic Orchestra. It's just different people. So similar skill set, but just know this. Let's see. Also, what I have found is if you do one thing for a while, like certain genre of music, and you do it well, people will call you for more of that. So if you really like new music and a composer wants you to conduct and you do it really well, I think people will often like recommend you for that, or they'll call you for the new music thing because they see it on your resume. Now that's great if you're pursuing what you want. Sometimes, like, you know, a gig is a gig. You say yes to whatever comes your way. But if you end up maybe not so much focusing on the thing you want, that's a thing to be aware of trying to find opportunities to maybe conduct a different genre of music. So, you know, things to consider. Okay. Let's see, starting your own ensemble. Once again, the world is your oyster. You can create opportunities. I started an ensemble that I thought there was a gap between musicians, you know, playing music and musicians advocating for causes that they care about, just as people. And so several friends, musician friends who I went to undergrad with, and I started my ensemble is called Protestra. We're based in New York. And I know a lot of conductors who have started different ensembles. Caitlin has started. Do you want to tell for a second about your organization? Yes, real quick.
Oh, so not conducting so much, but like a nonprofit focusing on getting music by underrepresented composers performed and recorded. And so
called And We Were Heard, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
But also you play a bunch of those pieces, like you meet those composers through your conducting work and you play their pieces. So it's all related, right? Like, you know, I really, really believe like I'm sure we all have felt at some point or other, you know, we were just talking about auditions earlier, like pressure to like win the seat or win the audition or whatever. And someone said, like, all you can do is be your best self. I'm paraphrasing here. But it is true that the thing you're best at is what you individually bring to music as an artist and as a human. So anything from I want to learn this repertoire, the people around me want to learn it, I'm going to create a project, to this type of ensemble doesn't exist and should, go for it. And again, feel free to email me questions if you want to start a nonprofit because it is a big project. It is a lot of work. Worth it, but a lot of work. Okay, so discussion and brainstorm time. Now that you all scribbled out your entire life path and career as we were going through this, no, I would love to break out into maybe 3 rooms, and I don't know what time it is. I'm going to stop sharing right now. But I would love for us all to individually answer these questions, and then we can all just share with one another so we each get more airtime of you don't have to answer all the questions publicly, but just some ideas perhaps that you have gotten from this presentation or others that you have. I certainly didn't list everything. And then maybe we can come back as a group and ask a few more questions and share our brilliant ideas.
Great. Can you drop those questions in the chat so when
Oh God,
that
yes.
screen share goes away,
Hold
we
on,
see
hold on,
them?
hold on, hold on.
And I have created 3 breakout rooms, one with each of the mentors. So I'm just going to open them up, and we're very short on time. So maybe just about 5 minutes.
Sorry. Great.
check
So
in.
everyone is just going to jump right in to discuss and just shout out your ideas. Okay.
All right. They're in the chat. I'm opening all the rooms. We'll see you back here in 5 minutes. You working on it?
I don't know why I can't figure out how to do this.
Assigned to what room were you? I'm just gonna stick you in room 2. Goodbye.
Oh my.
Okay. No, I'm gonna go. Okay. I think it's just us for a second while everybody else gets themselves back. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully those very short conversations were fruitful and we came up with some good ideas about moving forward in our burgeoning careers. We have just about 7 minutes left today. These are so short. So I hope you have gotten a lot of information to think about. Remember, we will share both a new updated YouTube list. We will share Michelle's very informative slideshow, so you can dig into that more later, and the recording as well. So if this was all a lot, go get some sleep and then maybe watch it again at some point this month. But for our remaining time, Michelle, you are our guest. And so we want to open the floor until 9:30 p.m. Eastern for our mentees to ask you any kind of questions. Mentees, these could be questions that are specific for Michelle or just more broad questions, but we can get Michelle's thoughts. And yeah, Michelle, if you don't mind, if you want to moderate. Oh, you're working on something, it looks like.
Absolutely. But real quick, Megan was cut off in the middle of a sentence. And I think you were just telling me about how you worked for an instrument shop and know how to like repair different instruments. And that's so, so useful to know so much about other instruments. So I'm sorry you got cut off. And I think that's really awesome.
Amazing. All right, Michelle, you want to call on some folks to ask you a question?
Cool. Yes. Addie Ann.
Yes, hi. I'm wondering, kind of two short questions. I'm at Eastman School of Music and I'm taking theory, and you have to take 5 semesters of theory. After my 5 semesters, should I take a more advanced theory? Like, should I keep going? Is it going to be useful, or should I stop?
I mean, find out what the curriculum will be to see if it's useful, but I mean, the more music theory you take, the more you will know. And it's great to be knowledgeable as a conductor. I would just judge if, what other class, if you have like feel like you have a deficit in somewhere else and it's that, or take more music theory, maybe work on that. But if you're like, music theory is my passion and I want to know more music theory than even Stravinsky, then like keep taking music. That's amazing. Like, that's so awesome. So.
I ask one more really quick?
Real quick.
I'm wondering about, do conductors do trial lessons like instrumental?
You can reach out for trial lessons. No teacher will guarantee do it, but you could reach out to a professor and say, could I have a trial lesson? Or could I honestly sit in on a class? Sometimes if you want to visit a school and email, I'm a prospective student, can I sit and observe your class? Might even be better than a trial lesson, but I would recommend getting to know teachers this way if you can. Let's see. Melina.
Hi, I'm Melina. One question that I do have, I want to become a choral conductor. So my question is, when you're studying a score initially, what are your key thoughts or steps to convey its emotional essence to your ensemble?
Emotional essence to ensemble. Well, when I'm studying a score, I tend to go big to small. So, you're just getting to know it. You maybe listen through or play through the whole thing. Big structure. If I need to translate it from, a different language, from Latin or something, I do that. And from there, there's several movements, go movement by movement. What's the structure? And then start to play through it. And I honestly just try to be really connected with what moves me as an artist, like what I find really beautiful about it, but then also how I can pace the whole thing so it has an emotional impact. So within a choral work or a symphony with multiple movements or a whole opera, it's like I want to enjoy every single moment, but I also don't want to lose the forest for the trees. Like, I want to just keep it exciting and expressive from the beginning to the end, And so I feel like these are my main goals. And you just have to learn in rehearsal what needs to be said and what you can show. And it'll always be adjusting in real time. Going in with an idea, of course, of I, in words, want this to sound like this, or I, in words, want to pace it like that. Great. But a lot of times you don't talk about pacing if you just show it and people follow, right? So, but that's, but yeah, the parts that I just let myself be moved by music, honestly. And I feel like if I am, someone else will probably be affected too. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see, Mackenzie.
I thought it was really interesting when you talked about starting Protestra. How do you program music for that? Are you pulling like music that you feel is kind of like underrepresented and has like a program note to the cause that you're working on, or is it like work from new composers? I'd
It's
love to
all of
hear
it.
more about that.
So we theme like the entire program. It has in some way like relation to our cause. So, for example, but we also try to do a real variety of music, like definitely believe in diversifying the repertoire and just looking for good music, and powerful music can come from anywhere. And it's like, it's not to check a box. It's not for some, like, it's just like we want all perspectives on music and on emotion and on like supporting an issue we care about. So, for example, we had a concert for climate action a couple years ago. And so there were some classic works on it, like Beethoven 6, Pastoral Symphony, inspired by nature. But then we also had a contemporary piece by Canadian composer Vincent Ho called Earthbeat. And he collaborated with First Nations musicians on creating something that was like the music that comes from the earth. And it like symbolized how like we're all connected to nature. And it was like such a cool piece. And so we just try to, and also for me personally, I just try to look as widely as possible for repertoire that I find compelling and exciting, because every performance you have, it's a real opportunity to move your audience and connect with your audience. And so I, again, want to find music that really affects and inspires me so I can share that with other people. So that's how I approach programming. Who haven't I heard from? Alexandra. I don't think did we talk yet?
Hi, we haven't talked, but I'd answered a question in the beginning. So I have two questions, but I don't want to eat up time, so I'm going to ask both, and you can choose whichever one you want to answer. So number one, I wanted to ask about the role of a music director versus a conductor in opera. Is that I know in musical theater, sometimes that'll be the same, sometimes that'll be separate. Do you MD and deal with the cast and teaching them that, or are you strictly conducting and you like show up in the script probe? Like, where is that line of music director versus conductor? That's our second question.
Yeah.
Is about opera accompanying. I'm a pianist as well. How does that differ to regular vocalist accompanying?
Okay, great. So the last question, easier to answer. Opera accompanying is like you play for staging rehearsals. So you play the orchestral reduction. The singers are singing and they're blocking with the director. The conductor is conducting. And so you have to follow a conductor. Now that's different, obviously, and you're trying to recreate an orchestral sound.
Yeah.
So, and so that's different than just a vocal coaching that you're or playing for a singer's lesson, right? Different skill sets. Still need to be an amazing pianist and know the repertoire, different skill set. Music director for musical theater versus opera. For opera, I am there for the whole process. I am there from the first, usually an opera process. And if you want to do opera, feel free to email me to learn more about that. But it's first day, usually music rehearsals with just the cast, then you do staging with the cast, then you have some first rehearsals with just the orchestra, and then you bring everyone together for rehearsals and you move into the theater. So I like to be there as the conductor the whole time. Sometimes, occasionally I've been the cover conductor and a conductor came a couple days late, so I did the first few days of rehearsal, or they missed a rehearsal, so I had to do it. But generally speaking, I mean, I'm pacing the drama the whole time. Like, I think the role of the conductor in opera is really, really important. In terms of being like, I'm not like, tuning out the director. What they're saying is not different from what applies to me. Like, I don't have to worry about picking up this prop at this time, but I do have to worry about connecting with the stage and supporting the drama the singers are trying to express. So I just enjoy that collaborative process so much. Now for musical theater, it's my understanding, I haven't done as much of it. I did like regional stuff when I was younger, but not professionally. It's my understanding, oh my gosh, we're totally at time. It's slightly different, and it's more of a director run rehearsal than conductor run rehearsal, often leading from the keyboard, whereas opera, not the case. That's a whole other discussion, but that's kind of the summary.
Thank you so much. I understand it's a lot.
Hey, so real quick, we have passed our end time. I need to run because I still have rehearsal here in California. But Michelle, if you're happy to stick around, I know we have a few questions left. Everybody else, if there's anybody who has to head off immediately, that's totally fine. This will be recorded until it's closed. So if you miss any of the question and answers at this point, we will send you reminders of what they were in the recording. You can take a look in the last post in the chat. Our next meeting is Friday, October 18th from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, always same time, but we rotate days, so it'll be a Friday. Your homework is answering all of Michelle's questions that we didn't get to, which we will send to you, and also bring your baton so we can do some baton work as well. I'm gonna head out. I think Michelle might stick around. Tanya might stick
I'll
around.
stick around for till 9:45.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
Caitlin. Bye,
Bye.
everyone listening. Before I answer more questions,
Thank you.
someone asked a question in the chat that I didn't get to earlier. So if this was your question, awesome. But someone had asked if your community or town or city doesn't have a ton of like music institutions or opportunities, like what can you do? In the breakout room I had earlier, we were talking, we had some good examples of people saying this ensemble or this organization didn't exist at my school, so I started this club, I started this ensemble. And the thing is, every ensemble or that exists or any school that exists, someone had to start it at some point. So if there really isn't any kind of ensemble you could join in your community, then start something. There have to be at least one or two other people that are like interested in music, even if it's just playing chamber music, right? So I really want to encourage anyone, people to be entrepreneurial and creative and like, just get started on something. Also, if your community doesn't have a ton of music organizations, most communities have some type of choir or musical theater or even church music. So those are always great opportunities to pursue. Let's see. Okay. Other questions. Kendra.
So I know in other majors and other careers, people can have the opportunities to go straight from like a bachelor to a doctorate degree. Is that possible or probable or suggested in anything music related? Or does everyone go through a master's?
Sorry. You skip right from undergraduate to a doctoral?
Yes. I mean, I know that's possible in some STEM fields.
Yeah. I don't know of any conservatories that do that. I don't know of any that do that. I do know of a few conservatories that do like 5 years will also include a master's degree type of thing rather than 4 years undergrad plus 2 years master's. I mean, I recommend like seeking out what's gonna give you the knowledge and skill set you need and get you where you want to go based on experience, based on knowledge, based on connections, based on how the teacher can support you, all that jazz, based on podium time. Also in terms of a doctoral degree, I wouldn't necessarily, in terms of like continuing for more graduate degrees, it's definitely a choice to make after a master's in conducting of like if you keep pursuing school. Now some people automatically do because they're like, I went to a really great like state school, but I want to apply for an artist diploma or a doctoral degree to this like big fancy schmancy conservatory or something. And so they'll go that route. There are some people who just really want to learn more about a certain subject. So they go to a doctoral degree or they want to be a university professor. So you should do a doctoral degree. But if you want to get into performing, I wouldn't say you necessarily need to get a doctoral degree. From my experience, I feel like I learned just as much, if not more, from actually starting to work than I did in my degree. Like that gave me tools in my toolbox, but I didn't know how to do anything with them until I started getting experience, frankly. So I got a master's degree and I was always like, I guess I'll try to work and I'll go back for another degree if I want. And I've definitely actually thought a few times, like later on, like, should I go back to school? I could still use to like study some things with a teacher. But honestly, I've been conducting a lot as a freelance conductor and I learned so much. I continue to learn so much with everything I do. So I think you have to decide for yourself, like what your goals are and what your gaps in knowledge are. I don't know if that helps, but a long answer. Lindsay.
Hi, so I'm a vocal primary looking to go into the realm of like musical theater and opera conducting. What are some things to take into consideration when you're working with vocalists and instrumentalists at the same time?
Okay, so there are a lot of things to consider. Really awesome that you have a background in voice because those who aren't singers and want to conduct opera definitely have to learn how singers work, like to breathe with singers and all of that stuff and how to coach singers. So that's super amazing. In terms of, I feel like sometimes I do conduct a little differently when I'm in a staging rehearsal versus conducting an orchestra. With singers, I would say in staging rehearsal, like I'm very, especially the first few times you go through it, or if people are still getting off book or something, I'm very like, my gestures are, I'm always cueing with my left hand. I'm very much like breathing with them. I'm like cueing all these little entrances. But once you have a lot more staging rehearsals than you have orchestra rehearsals. So generally, by the time I get to an opera performance, my singers don't need to be micromanaged. In fact, they often don't want to be. It'll be distracting if I'm like right in their face. Like they're watching my 4 pattern, they know how it goes, they just want to act and emote. And I'm not saying don't keep the conductor in your eye, but I also don't want them to have to be glued right downstage. Now, the orchestra never gets enough rehearsal time for an opera. So I'm going to be much more focused on like cueing individual things and conducting like bigger so a full orchestra can see me than I will be micromanaging the singers. But you also just learn like what spots need the most help as you get to know like that group of people. So it's like if this one singer is really far up stage and can't hear the orchestra that well and like always second guesses themselves on this entrance, then I'll make sure to be like, and you, like, you know, to help them out. But I'm not trying to like micromanage their very emotional moment of slow music downstage. Like they don't need that. I'll focus on the orchestra, you know? So you think a lot about balance. You just need to think a lot about who needs what. Like this spot, the trumpet hasn't played for like 12 years, and then they come in with a big solo. Focus on them at that moment, you know, things like that. That was I think that was the question of how you focus on singers versus instrumentalists. Yeah, that's kind of a summary. Maya.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom, and like I really appreciated the whole map. That was very like my organizational mind, but thank you. And I wanted to ask you, as a freelance conductor, how do you keep yourself finding gig work, I suppose, and like maybe recurring work, and what's it like kind of organizing yourself so that you're maintaining your conflicts correctly, or do you have an assistant? Yeah, that's what.
So it's kind of a variety of things. So backing up to getting gigs. I mean, it's kind of, if you're a freelancer, you kind of have to constantly put yourself out there. So it's the same for an instrumentalist, like doing gig life, right? Like kind of constantly, especially when I was just starting out and I didn't have like a lot of connections, like seeing a conductor colleague who was a bit older than me. I saw them post on social media, assistant conductor for the summer at this like opera festival. And then I would like go Google that. And then I would be like, okay, do they have an audition for assistant conductor? No, they don't. Okay, I'm going to email the email I found online of the administration and email them my resume and be like, hi, Michelle, and I just finished grad school and I want to be an opera conductor. Do you need an assistant conductor for next summer? And then sometimes they won't respond. Sometimes they'll be like, thanks, we'll keep it on file. And sometimes I've gotten like multiple gigs that way that led to a lot of other gigs because when they needed an assistant, they like had me in mind and they knew one of my references of someone else I worked with. And that person was like, yeah, Michelle was a really helpful assistant conductor, like great to take notes, letter rehearsal, great. And then they hired me. Like genuinely, so a lot of stuff has come up that way. Sometimes, I mean, if you just show up and are always do your best and are like kind to work with and, you know, go the extra mile, it's kind of like anything. Like opera world especially is kind of a small world. And I've definitely gotten work just from like recommendations. Like someone will be like, okay, we had a conductor pull out of the turn of the screw with this company like 2 weeks before opening. We need someone who's conducted that. And they emailed a couple of their colleagues. Someone else had just worked with me in the area and knew I did that opera a few years ago. And they were like, call Michelle. She's like really nice and knows the opera. So it's like, do you know what I mean? If you always show up doing your best work, like that stuff. At some point, if you focus on performance and freelance, you might get an artist manager. I have an artist manager who sometimes puts my name out there. But the thing is, I was getting consistent work before I got an artist manager, and they weren't interested in representing me until I was getting work. So it was like the great thing about it is they have some connections like I don't. So they can find out from a company, oh, this is what they're doing next season for their operas that's not announced yet. We told them you might be interested in this. Like I wouldn't have known that. That's intel that they have. Like that's awesome. That's what their job is for. But there's plenty of gigs that I like talk to someone in passing, or I reach out to a former mentor, or I'm like, and I get a lot of work myself too. Like no one's artist manager is just like out there running everything for them. You know what I mean? So it helps, but like you can and need to get work like before that. But anyway, I've had like an assistant briefly in the past when I've been really busy. And so I think for everything you do, like think about your return on investment. So one thing that I found was really helpful for an assistant, I had 1 million operas to learn last year that were new to me, and a bunch of them needed translating. And I was like, as much as I love to sit down and word for word translate, I need to start learning these scores yesterday. And I want that English translation to be right there when I start. And so I like found a singer friend that was like, yeah, I'm free. I'll do this for like X dollars an hour. And then I had my scores like with my translate ready to go. You know what I mean? So it's like, but that was the thing where I was like making money from gigs. So to do better at them, I could like pay someone to help me for the thing I truly didn't have time for. So, you know what I mean? Like or maybe you're not great with tech and you really need a website and your friend is good at making websites, then, it's definitely not a bad idea to do stuff like that, or even like barter with friends if you need. So anyway, that's kind of a wandering answer, but I hope I answered some parts of your questions. Adeline, am I saying your name right? Adeline?
Adeline.
Adeline!
Yeah.
Third time's a charm.
So right now I'm just doing my first orchestral conducting gig with my local youth orchestra. So I'm conducting my peers actually. And it's like my first really like on stage like gig that I've ever had. And so I'm taking lessons and I'm really excited for it. But it's also like a really scary thing being vulnerable in front of your peers. And I was wondering if you had any advice for like conducting your peers and that kind of dynamic, and then just advice for like being vulnerable with the group and how to deal with like putting yourself out there.
Sure. So I agree. It can sometimes be intimidating to like be working with peers or even people older than you. And you're like, I've definitely felt like this. I'm not saying you should feel like this, but I definitely felt like this when I was young at times of like, the conductor is supposed to be the one that knows the most in the room. And yet these people are older than me and have even more experience than me. And like, what do I have to say? Here's the thing. You don't have to know more than everyone. Your job is just different than theirs. So what I mean by that is they each know how to play their instrument most likely better than you. Like I'm a pianist. Everyone in the orchestra knows how to play their instrument better than me. I'm waving a stick. Without them, I am waving a stick in the air. No music is happening, right? But the thing is, what they don't have is the full score and the ability to scan through everyone's parts to see how it lines up. That's my job. So I try to treat rehearsal as a collaborative, like this is what's needed. Not like a you do this differently, this is my interpretation, but just like I try to prepare a score to look at what everyone needs for this to be really successful and to like collaborate, right? So I think like no matter the age group you work with, approaching it just as a collaboration. So I like to use a lot of phrases like rather than you need to do this or that's wrong, you can say, hey, can we double check the notes here? I know they're super tricky, right? And that's not like making anyone like your friends feel bad or like calling anyone out, but it like does address the issue of wrong notes, which it is your job to address, right? So something like that, or like, let's try this part again, or here, we need to do this. Like, we need to drive the tempo towards this to the big explosive moment when we all join in at the climactic moment. Like, you have the full score and you've thought of the structure of this. So that's really what they need from you. Do you know what I mean? So, phrasing thing as, let's try this, or can we please start from here? Like, just being respectful and collegial and looking at it as a collaboration. I know a lot of people think of the conductor, oh, power dynamic, and I really don't like that. Like, I wouldn't be anything without the musicians, and the musicians won't be playing together at all without me. So we just need to work together, you know? It's like big chamber music, but my instrument is my arms and what I say in rehearsal. So let's see. Do we have anyone else? No, that was all the hand raised. Oh, we had one more. Vicky, hi.
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing that Adeline is doing. I'm also conducting the orchestra for my school, and I was wondering, like, I struggle gaining their respect because they see me as one of them. Like, what can I do to gain their respect?
Let's see. Well, you can't make anyone do anything, right? So, backing up, what can you control? You can control how well you prepare the score. Like how well you know it, how well you know their parts, not just like what you do, but know what they need. Because like, yeah, we have to think about what we're doing, but why are we doing what we're doing? So they can do their job of playing the notes in a way that sounds beautiful, right? So preparing the score really well, having answers at the ready for like, make sure the cuts are correct and make sure you like, I don't know the transposition, or if you catch an error in the score, have the answer for them like ready, you know? And again, I think approaching things with a collaborative way, it works for professionals and for your peers in school of like, let's start here. And so it's like your job to keep rehearsal running efficiently. If they don't want to start at this rehearsal number when you're running rehearsal, well, then they're not doing their job. Like that's like not on you, right? Sometimes you have a difficult person and then, you know, it's just learning how to redirect if someone's like, actually, could we be, if you don't have time and you're the conductor and you need to prioritize and people are questioning you, be like, hey, we don't have a lot of time left. Let's do this section again and then we'll go back to your question. Just like redirecting it right like that, right? Like finding a way to be like, nope, I have a plan. We'll get to your question though. Don't worry, I'm not shutting you down. Things like that I find can help. What else was I gonna say? I think also just I think people appreciate it when you're efficient with your time and when you have a plan. Is a big one because you know you want them to feel comfortable when they get to a performance, and it's a trap I continue to fall into sometimes. I could talk all day. You heard me just like talk a million years tonight, and so it's very easy to like focus on one section too much. So one thing I suggest is starting off rehearsals like conducting more than you talk. Like let them play and see what happens. And I'm sure you know, as a member of an ensemble, when you go through something the first time, like you're sight reading, you mess it up, you're not sure, and you know what you did wrong. You don't need the conductor to tell you came in on the wrong note, like you know. So as the conductor, be like, you know, just play through it. And sometimes it's like, okay, say you stop after like 5 minutes, say one or two things like, you know, in general, okay, good reading. In general, I want to go back to the beginning again and let's do this again and just let's focus on achieving a lighter sound. Remember, it's Rossini, it's not Puccini. So you want a lighter, vibrant sound, you know, keep the bow stroke smaller, something. Say like one or two things. And then play again. Like don't sit down and like go through a list of notes they got wrong. They know. If something obvious happens a few times, then do explain it. Be like, can we double check that note? You know what I mean? But it's like, they need to play. And I had one conductor tell me, and I don't always do this, but she's right, of, you know, for rehearsal, to help yourself talk less, try a game of give the note in 5 words or less. And I'm not saying you always have to do that, but saying like, okay, stop. Trombones. Più forte at the repeat. That might have been 6 words. Trombones, più forte at the, okay, 6 words. But that's like all they need to know. Do you know what I mean? So like, if you're respectful of people's time and you trust them to fix the obvious stuff, do you know what I mean? It shows respect for them and they'll be likely to have respect for you. And if someone is blatantly disrespectful to you, then like that says more about them than it does about you. And the more you can just bring it back to the focus. You know what I mean? Like you have to deal with all kinds of people. I've dealt with some not nice people, but mostly nice people who the respect becomes mutual. So lots of people in the chat, how excited I was to conduct, people respect themselves. Yeah, totally. You know what? That's so right. Also, yes, 100% Addie, of just like, you know, you being excited to share the music with them and like appreciating their hard work and their time. Like, I feel like there are a lot of like mean or boring conductors out there. So if you can like really inspire people to be like, oh, I love this section, let's make it as vibrant, blah, blah, blah as possible. People appreciate the inspiration, you know, because that's what life is about. Totally love that. Cool. Anyway, thank you for your great questions. Were there any other burning questions I didn't have a chance to answer? Anything else we want to discuss? Oh, we stayed on even longer. I'll just like stay and talk all night. Anyway, it was so nice to meet all of you. I don't know if Caitlin and Tanya have shared my email, but I'm sure they will. Feel free to reach out with questions or like reach out again in case I'm like busy and miss it. I do want to answer. So if I don't respond, know that it's because I got 100 opera emails in a day from my stage manager and I missed it. So email me again, but I'd be happy to keep in touch. Good luck to all of you. I'm so excited to hear about all your projects. Good luck with your upcoming conducting things in school. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.